Hey, hi everyone. Moshe, I believe, is trying to join at this point, but I'm glad we're getting this done. It has been a little bit of a chaotic couple of months, and I don't remember the last time. Oh, I did a Facebook Live with Ellie Nash a little while back, but there hasn't been. I haven't done anything after the election, and it's been a little bit of a tumultuous time. Just got back into school. Been doing a lot of catching up on school projects and whatnot, and I haven't really had time, but I've been following nonstop, and I have been very entertained by what's been going on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and it has been an exciting few weeks. I've been a little bit more positive about it than my Trump-supporting Republican friends, which most of you know is most of my social group, or most of my social media group. Surprisingly, but that's the community I come from, and that's, I guess, the people that that I've been able to that come from the same background that I've come from, and who, if I hadn't left when I did, I'd like to think that my brother, who is ultra orthodox, ultra orthodox is a very generalized term. My brother, who is one of the lead software developers for Chabad.org, I don't want to throw out names, but he's brilliant, smarter than I am, and he is a beer-toting, white shirt-wearing, Borsalino-toting Chabadnik in Crown Heights, and he's one of the main people that I would turn to coming up to the election. That I would ask him questions about, like, how do you respond to the Trump supporters who say this, and how do you respond? Because his rhetoric was always very calculated, and he's a Biden supporter, and that was one of the things that, among all the other things, that I always appreciated and looked up to in my little brother. And now Moshe Weissman is joining, so I'm gonna tune him in. And Moshe, it's good to see you. I feel like this is our
do you
first.
Hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. How are you? Can you hear me?
I don't hear you.
I can hear you. I can hear you. I think we can chat here. There's a private chat. I can hear you. Can the people hear?
Do you hear me?
I can hear you.
So
You
I
see the
can't
private
hear you. I'm not sure why that is.
Huh.
1 second.
Let me.
Oh. You hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
It looks like your video stream
now I can.
Pixelated, but that's okay. You're a Trump supporter, so we're not going to hold that against you. Anyway, Moshe, it's been a little while. We haven't done this since the gun debate that we had. What was that platform that we did that on?
Call it. Was it a gun debate or was it immigration? The wall.
Gun. Definitely guns. I remember I was prepping for it.
Could be. I don't recall. It's definitely been a while.
It's been a while. Well, so I watched your YouTube video in its entirety, the 29 minutes, I believe it was. And first of all, kudos to you for getting that YouTube channel up. Something I've been wanting to do. I had a friend of mine. We were going to produce a whole thing, and then life throws you 1.5 million curveballs, and it's kind of difficult to get those things done. So I salute you for doing that. Definitely something that
it was not easy.
Some great graphics.
Thank you very much. There were many setbacks.
music, it really encapsulated me.
It's very choppy.
You're breaking up a little bit.
The sound is very and choppy.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
One second. Barbara hears both. Roy hears both. It appears that people hear us. We may not hear each other.
There's some delay. It's choppy and some.
What about other people? Can other people hear us?
It's gone now. It seems like they can't hear us. The issue is. I'm generally not sure.
William hears me and not you. It's possible. I've never used this before. I have no idea what I'm doing here. I have no idea. I'm trying to like stream across Facebook and Instagram and YouTube all at the same time, and I have no idea. All I know is my tequila. And I know about what's going on in the election. That I don't know. You don't know what's going on in the election.
I know testimonies. I know of irregularities. I can't say I know exactly what's going on.
So what?
I'm lying if I say I did.
So the people who are watching us aside, because I'm mostly interested in having this conversation with you. What do you know that is keeping you? Because at this point, I feel like Donald Trump. You responded to one of my posts where you were saying where I was suggesting that the promulgation of conspiracism, the promulgation of this idea that as you can repeat something over and over and over again, and if enough people listen to what you're saying and hear it over and over again, it becomes true enough to the point where people are willing to repeat it. And that's what I feel like has been happening with this election. And I feel like that's what's been happening with all of these allegations of voter fraud. There doesn't have to be evidence to back it up, and there doesn't seem to be any evidence to back it up. It just seems to be a lot of allegations repeated over and over again to the point where people are like, well, now we have to look into it. Now we have to consider that this is possibly what's happening. So that's where I am.
So let me, if you don't mind, if I could ask just a couple of questions. They're not gotcha questions. Just I want to see maybe we're common ground. Do you believe that voter fraud is at least possible?
Do I believe that voter fraud is what?
Is it possible? Somebody want to carry that out. I'm not talking about if it might have to be a considered effort. All right.
Sure.
And we should have safeguards in place because of.
There's no question about it.
I can't.
Absolutely.
Broke off. Okay. Would you agree that one of those safeguards would say, let's watch to ensure that there's nothing fraudulent going on?
Sorry, watchers for the poll counting? You broke up a little bit, so I'm just trying to.
And yeah, for the counting, would you say safeguard to ensure that there's no fraudulent behavior?
I mean, okay. I have more of a trust in the system than than to require poll watchers on either side. Like I have a little more faith in that. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a bad thing.
First, I'm curious what go on, I guess, but let's why would you have such faith in the system based on, I mean, you're not having faith in the system, you're having faith in individuals you do not know. So why do you?
Well, we have a lot of systems in place to verify and double check, you know, to make sure that people aren't voting twice, and people aren't voting when they're dead, and people aren't voting fraudulently, and people aren't voting if they're not citizens. We have a lot of those systems in place, and since the Heritage Foundation, which is a demonstrably conservative organization, did a study that found that there were 31 cases since 2000 of voter fraud in all of our elections since 2000. I mean, we're talking 20 years. So leaving this election aside, because I would assume that there would probably be more than 31 cases in this specific election. But that, I mean, like, where are we seeing the fraud that we're so concerned about? William says he's not hearing. He's not hearing your
the Heritage Foundation and any counts of fraud that have. I'm not sure why.
Do you have a lot of other things pulling out bandwidth? You have a lot of other tabs open, maybe?
Hold on a second. Let's try and close them all.
Let me do the same thing. Yeah, I'm looking at like 1 bar on you for network. Oh, you're back up to 3 bars, but I don't even know what this means. Again, I've never used. Oh, now you're up to 4 bars. Beautiful. And I'm down to 1 bar. Okay, whatever. Anyway, let's see if we can continue the dialogue.
So
where were we?
Yeah, we'll get into. We're into the question. You have faith, and again, you're having faith people, right? A whole counter. If one of these people are counting votes, decidedly or as part of a group, to defraud the system, what should we have safeguards in place? It's possible. You're saying you have faith that they're not going to do it. What's that faith based on?
Well, I'm not having faith in the individual people. I'm having faith in the system. I'm having faith that our individual states have put together systems. And granted, I don't know every single election system in every single one of the 50 states. So it could be that maybe Alaska has a system that has some issues that I might want to be, you know, worked on. And granted, listen, the Democratic Party has introduced 3 different bills just in 2020 to try to vamp up election security that have all been shot down unequivocally by Mitch McConnell. So there's no question that we can demonstrably increase security around our elections, even from a federal standpoint. But I have not been presented any sort of data that suggests to me that I should have any concern about elections as they've been conducted for the past 50 years. So I'm not concerned about how our elections proceed now.
What on that? What data would show that? You have to know what you're looking for. Haven't found it. If some investigators investigating and know what evidence in order to conclude, okay, I haven't seen any evidence, but I can't say, hey, somebody's innocent because I haven't seen evidence if I don't know what evidence I'm. What exactly are you looking for that you can conclude, okay, I've looked for it, it's not there?
Well, I haven't looked for it.
What? or
I
even
don't know.
anybody? What would they be looking for?
I don't know. I don't know any presidential candidate or any candidate in the past that has suggested that monumental fraud has taken place to steal the election from them. So I don't know what I would be looking for. I can tell you from this election what this president is suggesting that we look at, and he's suggesting that we look at the voting machines, and he's suggesting that we look at voter ID laws, and he's suggesting that we look at signature matching. He's suggesting that we look at various different things. Not that any of them have produced any sort of evidence of fraud, but he's suggested numerous things that we can talk about.
Have they?
What's that?
And then haven't shown fraud, but have those things been looked at? What he suggests to look at?
Yeah, absolutely.
They have? Forensic analysis has been done. Weird.
Forensic analysis on what?
On software, machines, whether whether ballots have been masked for signature verification. That's been done.
Well, you can't really. Forensic analysis needs to be done. Forensic analysis is mostly applied to like actual computers, right? Forensic analytical, forensics on the computer would have to be conducted in the precincts. They use computer tabulating software, but in the precincts where they have used computer tabulating software, they've looked into the allegations of fraud and haven't found any.
No, they haven't. Who's looked into it?
The secretaries of state of Michigan, of Georgia, of Arizona that have been called out publicly by Trump. They've all looked into it.
And what have they done? What exactly have they done to look into?
Well, they look into whether or not there's any.
And you're taking a lot of people based on their word.
Well, for example, Georgia, where they've already tabulated the votes and then recounted by hand, and then recounted the hand count, and then gotten basically the same results, maybe off by tens of votes, which is common in a recount. Like,
if I wanted to defraud the system, if I wanted to defraud the system, I can ensure that. That's not a safeguard. You're how not?
How could,
if I can put in as many ballots as I want, and if I can manipulate the software, then again, what? Let me explain to you like this. There happens to be was analysis done.
The votes were recounted by hand.
Correct.
So what forensic analysis is necessary if the votes are counted by hand and they find the same sort of result?
Forensic analysis, we're confusing two things. Forensic analysis can be done on a machine, and if it shows that it's been manipulated, then you don't even need to recount know that fraudulent behavior occurred. You don't need to recount. Democrats, some of them are is if the number of votes tabulated match the number of ballots, then that there shows necessarily that there was no fraudulent behavior. But that's not true if I can manipulate the amount of mail-in ballots that we have as well.
Do we have if I was able to
manipulate both?
Fair enough, but do we have any indication that there was a manipulation of the number of mail-in ballots that were received?
Well, we'll get to the question. If the answer is no, again, it doesn't even I don't know if it's not, but you can't show that they match up, that necessarily means fraudulent behavior if the second thing, which are mail-in ballots, can be manipulated. It's not a proof that there was no manipulation. Now, again, going back to Georgia, I would bring up the event that happened in State Farm now. As I don't know what happened, but it's certainly questionable. It certainly does not look completely questionable.
Why?
I don't know. Could it be?
Why? Because Tucker Carlson said something?
All right. First of all, why would we? No. Let me explain to you a couple of irregularities. We have sworn affidavit people testifying under oath that they were told that counting stopped.
What does that mean?
One second. Let me. Affidavits from people that were there, poll watchers that were under oath that they were told to go home because the counting stopped.
Okay.
The count continued. First of all, that's a red flag. Would you agree that that is a red? I mean, you agree that's a red flag. I mean, I don't.
It shouldn't.
Again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's certainly a red flag.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if it's a red flag. Like, there should have been better communication, but that's typical in our bureaucracy. But yeah, go on.
You don't think that's a red flag? You're not sure that that's normal. It's per that.
I mean,
that's just normal procedure.
Have you ever been to a bureaucratic office? Like when there's 100 volunteers there and they tell you, okay, everybody, you can start going home, and they start kicking everyone out, and for the people who are paid to be there, to pay to count, and they stay, and they're like, you know what, I don't mind working until 3 a.m. I understand. Like I own businesses, so like I understand that like that.
You think counting votes in an election, if it works like that? I mean, I've been to DMV, so you're fine if our election process like the inside of a DMV office, because it happens in a DMV office. So why can it happen around?
I understand when we're dealing with the most I don't want to say disorganized, because it depends on the state really, but when we're dealing with the most unprecedented election in this history of our country, where we've had to completely upend the way we process our election in a matter of 10 months, that I understand why we've had why things didn't like. There's no specific rule that says there has to be Republican and Democratic poll watchers in the room when votes are being counted. It's like a courtesy that, like, okay, you want to come in? No problem. We'll allow people to come in. Like, it's not a law that requires people to be standing.
First of all, I'm not sure if it's 100% accurate. I'm pretty sure in Georgia that you do have to allow them, and sending them home and then go counting is illegal.
It's not required that they be there.
But if they sent them home and continued counting, then they didn't allow them.
Well, it's not about whether or not they sent them home. Okay, it's 1 a.m. You can now go home, and everybody went home, and like 3 people stayed.
No. But that's not what the testimony is. There's testimony from multiple people on penalty of perjury that under oath that they were
the penalty of perjury. Don't give me the penalty of perjury. First of all, there's plenty of other people that came out and said that no, they weren't sent home. It was just basically counting was over for the night. It happened to be that some people offered to stay later. But penalty of perjury is bullshit, because affidavits suggesting that they can be arrested if they, in order for someone to be arrested for an affidavit, they have to have knowingly lied. So even this, the woman in the Michigan testimony, the crazy lady, even if she were signing a sworn affidavit, if she believed what she was saying, even if it was complete bullshit, she could have said that like aliens abducted her. If she believed it, she couldn't be arrested, because you have to knowingly lie. An affidavit is like the least enforceable legal paper.
I find that odd. You say that a sworn affidavit is nothing, but yet you fall back on the other testimony of other people that are not even under penalty of perjury as a basis for saying that these people under penalty of perjury are lying. Do you see how?
What are they lying?
You're discounting their testimony under penalty of perjury. Hold on a second.
I just don't understand what the claim is. What's the claim of fraud?
Hold on a second. We're starting. There's a claim. People are claiming that they were sent home. You're saying it's not true because other people said sent home.
Okay. Well, what does sent home mean?
Everybody go home. We're done counting. Leave.
Is that what they said?
That is what they said.
According to
affidavits, you can read it under the suit that was filed in Georgia.
Okay, so let's take a look. Video doesn't show suitcases of illegal ballots. Let's see, sent home.
You want you can fact check this afterwards. I don't spend too much time because this is really one of the smallest things that I even want to talk about.
Right, but my point is that you're claiming that people were sent home, which people subjectively, in other words, how many affidavits were filed? A few hundred?
I don't know the number, but I've
okay. So
probably at least between.
I've gone through a dozen or so affidavits, and like half of them are like, oh, this guy was wearing a BLM hat, and this guy was rolling his eyes when he was looking at Trump votes, and this guy was talking to me.
Read, but I haven't seen any of those, and I've read a fair amount of affidavits, so okay. I'm not sure where you're reading your affidavits.
I'd encourage you to read the affidavits that are public, because those are the only ones that I have access to. And the hundreds of affidavits that Trump has claimed that they have gotten from witnesses of voter fraud, the only ones that they have published are the ones that have been in legal lawsuits in various states. And all of those lawsuits, of the 47, 48 lawsuits that they filed, all of them have been thrown out except for like 3 of them at this point. So, I mean, those are where I'm seeing the affidavits.
Lawsuit getting thrown out. All right, a lawsuit getting thrown out is nothing. It can be thrown out based on standing. It could be thrown out. It's inconclusive. It could be thrown out because it doesn't lead to anything concrete. A lawsuit doesn't mean it didn't. Getting thrown out doesn't mean it didn't happen. That's right. A non sequitur. Okay, so it doesn't mean that these affidavits were weak if the lawsuit is thrown out.
Right, except that judges have specifically.
Right.
Okay, but judges have
now.
Literally,
but again,
here, I know you mentioned.
We're getting caught up on the detail.
I know you mentioned. 1 second. I know you mentioned Sidney Powell in your video. This is the headline from a day ago. This is what the judge said about the Sidney Powell lawsuits. Few lawsuits breathe more lies than this one. Like this is the bullshit that's being peddled by the and granted, Sidney Powell was way too out there, conspiratorial for even the Trump campaign, so they had to distance themselves from her a few weeks ago. But at this point, every single lawsuit is being thrown out because judges are saying this is hearsay. This is hearsay upon hearsay. This is people saying that I heard from someone who heard from someone. Like this is not even literally the Trump campaign had people standing outside. Give me one case.
Okay.
One case of voter fraud.
I'll give you a case. All right. How about let's do this in Michigan, right? You read the affidavits in Michigan?
Sure.
Okay. That crazy lady in Michigan give testimony. Did you watch the couple that went up right after her?
Yeah, absolutely.
You watch. They seem to be credible people, right? I mean, they seem to me credible, whether they're Democrat or Republican.
More credible
people. I don't see any reason to say not.
Okay, sure.
I don't see.
They seem more.
See them as not credible. Well, they testified for the HEMA. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. She testified. First of all, tabulation machines weren't supposed to surpass 50. She saw some of them that had hundreds of count on them. She said she saw the box of, it says EPB-S, which means not election poll book or system, that were being entered manually, which were officially aren't supposed to be done, with dates going back as early as 1900. She said also on those that were being entered manually, they were in sequence, which can't happen when they get mailed in, because if they're mail in, they come in from all over the place. They wouldn't all be in sequence, one after the next, in order. Machines were getting jammed multiple times per hour, which she and the guy with her confirmed that crazy lady's testimony. So that's 3 testimonies right there, that each machine is getting jammed multiple times per hour. That's not anymore.
That's one testimony.
Okay, now, okay, so you obviously the affidavit. I have.
Well, one second. But I sat through that entire hearing, right? So I listened to everything crazy lady said. I listened to everything Indian lady said, and I sat and listened to everything Pakistani guy said, and I listened to everything that everybody said. And what Indian lady said, and I don't remember her name, and I don't like referring to her as Indian lady, but she referred to herself as Indian lady, and other people as Chinese people she doesn't recognize, and whatever. What she said substantively was that in the whole area that she was watching, she witnessed that this did not happen. She noticed that in other areas that they re-put in the ballots again. Now, this doesn't actually mean that they were counted twice. She just saw them doing this repeatedly. Okay? Now, furthermore, what she said was, by the way, in Michigan, the way votes are counted from the military, from disability and absentee ballots, they're emailed in and they're tabulated manually by voter poll counters. So we don't know what she witnessed. We don't know what she witnessed. But what she witnessed relative to whether or not it was fraud doesn't actually make it fraud.
Okay. First of all, it's not what she said. She said it was happening on her machines as well, but she corrected them. That's what she said. She was able to correct the ones by her machine. Were happening by her machine.
Right, but nobody else's machine was able to correct it.
Second of all, okay, again, so you're coming here to discredit a testimony based on.
I'm just saying that she was responsible for her one machine.
Based on you're saying it's not.
1 second, she wasn't claiming that fraud occurred. She was saying that she was watching irregularities occur that she didn't have complete oversight over.
Irregularities. These are ballots getting counted twice.
How do we know that?
She's okay, so testimony. Testimony is when a machine, right? What you do is you're putting in 50 ballots at a time, right? Let's say the machine gets jammed at ballot number 25.
And you put it back in and recount 75 more ballots.
Ballot number 5. You're supposed to discard it, push it to 0, take it out, and rescan. They left it at 24, fixed it, and then put. Is that legal? Is that means counting ballots twice? Does that mean?
Well, it depends on what button they pressed, apparently, but I don't really know how the machines work, right? But I also know that every ballot has a sequence number on it that tabulates what number, so it can't count the same ballot twice. If it sees 190257255 whatever, it's not going to count it twice. It's going to count that once. So I don't know exactly how the voting machines work. I just know if I were to design software that was to load ballots in that are sequence numbers, it would only count the sequence number once. So even if I loaded 50 ballots and 49 went through and the last one said error, reload, and I reloaded the entire 50 batch again, if I were designing a software for voting, it would take into account the number that's dotted on the top of the page that is only individual to one single ballot. Now what justifies this to me is that...
That's your argument?
What justifies this to me is that the legislative representative, the Republican legislator, who asked Giuliani, why didn't you request a recount? If you felt that this was a big enough concern, why didn't you request a recount? And his response was about mail-in ballots. His response was not about whether or not ballots were counted twice. His response was about, because mail-in ballots. But if you could present that ballots were counted twice, then you have a monumental case. The fact that they didn't even bother to to order a recount, even for 2 days after the results were certified. To me, it's like, okay, they knew that they had no case.
So basically, your argument is if you were designing a software, you would design it in a way that this wouldn't be possible. I'm not even gonna.
My argument is that you don't know how Dominion software works because you haven't worked in Dominion voting poll center, and I don't either. So we're taking our limited information from her testimony about how their software works, despite her not having designed it, and her not. She may be in IT, and she may know how to press certain buttons, but it doesn't sound like perfectly well how it works. So
you actually think that they solve a line of reasoning?
You're breaking up.
We have testimony that counted twice. We have testimony that been counted twice. The argument is, I don't know how Dominion software works, but it can't be that it could count it twice. So obviously it didn't count it twice. So therefore, there's nothing to talk about here. Again, that's not something I think it's
my testimony
exploring to anybody watching. Anybody who's watching, anybody who's replaying it could go back over what was basically somebody came testimony, ballots are. If I was, it can't be that it's possible. That's in a nutshell what you're saying. I don't want to explore it further. If that's you think that sounds
well,
I don't.
It's very convenient to frame my argument. It's very convenient to frame my argument in a specific way, to twist what I'm saying, and then say, "Oh, you don't want to talk about it further." But I will elaborate further because what I'm saying specifically is that I know just as much about this software as you do. And when she says that that's what she saw, like there's no data to back that up because every single lawsuit that has been filed regarding the double recount has been thrown out. So who am I to question what the judge has seen versus what I have seen on a random news site versus what a random lady who was hired by Rudy Giuliani for who knows how much money to represent Donald Trump in this ridiculous thing that even Republicans are like, this is an embarrassment for our country. Who am I to say that I know better than the judge that's throwing out these cases? The Republican judges.
Okay. Again, you basically just said what you said before, and so I wasn't strawmanning. Basically, you just repeated it. Just a quick note, I think looking at it, it really doesn't make sense. If what you're saying is true, then why should, if a ballot jammed, then why should they touch it on the machine? It's going to get this, the other ones are going to get discarded anyways, and it's impossible to count the ballot. So it just, again, anybody who's watching, I'm not here to convince you of anything. I said testimony was, you think you have a solid line of reasoning that it's impossible, so no should even pay attention to it. Anybody who's watching could pay attention. I did not try to strawman what you said. I think what I said was a very accurate descriptive summary of what you said. If I was wrong, I did not mean to strawman. Again, that's a single affidavit, a single testimony. I don't want to spend much time. I do want to spend more time. Sorry?
Do you think the judges are in on it?
Do I think what?
The judges. Do you think the judges
are in on it? I don't.
So why wouldn't
possible that a judge?
So why wouldn't these cases,
especially not in right? Why?
Why wouldn't the judges be? Why wouldn't the judges be? Why wouldn't the judges be accepting these cases?
Okay, so there's a whole other issue. I brought it before, as far as on the legal side of it, what these testimonies, the weight these testimonies carry. Again, if a firsthand might not be able to conclude a case, but it is certainly considered as evidence. Now, just having firsthand testimony to something, again, might not be enough to overturn an election. You can't now say the judge didn't rule that it was enough to overturn it, therefore no fraud happened. Again, that's a non sequitur. That it does not logically follow. It can logically follow, but it doesn't necessarily follow that no fraud happened.
Are you suggesting that the Secretary of State of questions? The state of Michigan has not investigated this claim?
One.
I don't know if you heard me.
You there?
I'm here.
Hello? Not sure what happened. I just missed the last 20 seconds.
I'm not sure if you heard me, but my question was, do you think that the Secretary of State of Michigan did not investigate these claims?
I did. They claim they did. I'm not.
So is the Secretary of State in on it?
On that, again, you're trying to put this into an arena which I'm not sitting in.
Well,
I'm not saying that
I'm trying
all these people are in on it.
I'm trying to propose a scenario in which not everyone is lying, and even the Indian woman, the Indian IT woman, who worked her ass off to get in this country and gave up her citizenship to become a United States citizen, even she is not lying, and she saw what she believed to be the double counting of all the ballots. Is it possible?
I don't know if she's lying. Well, I don't know if she's lying.
I'm not assuming that she's lying.
Very clear,
right? I'm not assuming that she's lying. I'm assuming that she saw something. No, I'm assuming that she saw something and didn't understand how the software worked.
I'm assuming she probably understands it better than you and I. Deflect to that, then we can't go this.
I mean, it's
I don't want to get
cut up. It doesn't mean I'm not trying to say that I understand it better. I'm trying to say that it's possible that her seeing them re-put in the ballots didn't mean that it counted it twice. Just because she understands it better than you and I, which I acknowledge, she may have been wrong about that one individual fact. And that doesn't mean she lied.
It's 100% possible. 100% possible. That's certainly possible. And I don't want to. I'm not saying this is okay. Done. There's verified fraud. But when there's an allegation made by somebody who seems to be credible, saying X, Y, and Z, it carries some weight. And it might not be enough weight to overturn anything, but it carries some weight. It's certainly more than
the Secretary
nothing.
of State
but then her
should investigate.
Yeah, and absolutely these things should be investigated. But then the next thing is her testimony, the person he was with, and this testimony could be corroborated by many people in their sworn affidavits that Republican poll watchers were thrown out, were not allowed to watch, and were hated. Basically, sorry?
Where?
Her testimony in Michigan.
Okay, but is that fraud?
No, oh, a second. But that's a testimony. Now you have to ask yourself a question. Why would that happen? Honestly, ask yourself this question. I want you to be honest right now. Take a few seconds to think about it. No, I want you to think about this. Say the reverse would have happened. Say that at large, Democratic poll watchers were thrown out of poll counting places. What would your response to that be? Okay, who cares? Would that be your response? Or would you say, hey, you don't throw out if you're not planning to do something wrong? I mean, does it not any red flags at all, or you're just like, whatever, who cares whether it was Biden's, Trump, it doesn't make a difference. Throw any poll watchers you want out. Who cares? That's your response?
Who's reporting that?
We have sworn affidavits by many. That woman, the man she was with, and a bevy of others, if you want, I can link you to them, of people that went under oath.
Do you think it's possible? Do you think that it's possible that Trump supporters may have gotten through as poll watchers that were also a little bit rowdy?
Oh, it's possible.
Right. Okay. So those rowdy Trump supporters, do you think it's likely that they would have filed affidavits?
Oh, it's possible, sure.
Right. Okay. So forgive me for not immediately like, oh, any sort of Republican or Trump supporter that says, oh, I was kicked out. Meanwhile, there was 100 other Republicans that were poll watchers that were in the room at that time that were not kicked out. Sure, there were.
No, there weren't.
Yes, there were.
It's on video. No, there weren't. Okay, yes, no, there weren't. It's on video.
Second, how do you identify them on video?
Okay, no, there weren't. And
yes,
testimony for us that other guy that was with them. There were two poll watchers on the video, and they weren't even able to see anything. So if you want, again, I'll link it. I'm not going to argue over facts. I'll link it in the video if you want. Okay, now the guy that was with that woman on the testimony, he testified, and again, there were a number of others, that when Republican poll watchers were thrown out for bogus reasons, that what's supposed to happen is they're supposed to be replaced with another poll watcher, but they weren't.
Okay.
Is that an issue, or is that just cool?
I mean,
the question you're taking here, you're saying is, and
I mean, I don't know the law.
Partisan and but it is so.
Is that a law?
Again, you're forget about a law.
One second. I don't care if anyone's in the room. I don't care if anyone's in the room. Okay? I don't.
You don't?
I never.
You don't?
I never even thought of poll watchers in 2016.
Answer me this honestly. If every 1% of Democratic poll watchers had been thrown out, give a damn, and only Republicans were there, you would not give a damn. You're a liar if you say. You're a liar if you say yes. You're a liar if you say yes. So don't say it.
You can't ask me a question and then tell me that I'm a liar for asking the question before you allow me to answer the question. That's such a dishonest. That's such a bad faith way. That's such a bad faith way of having an argument. That's such a bad faith way of having a discussion at all.
Let me ask you again. You know what? Let me ask you again.
Maishi. From a good faith perspective, in 2016, was it ever a question on both sides how many poll watchers were in the room?
No idea. Now let me ask the question. You said you're poll watchers, so my question is,
have you ever heard of this issue before? Poll watchers in the room. I never even knew that poll watchers could be in the room.
No idea. Okay. My question is, hypothetically, say the things happened.
Hypothetically, I would have an issue.
100.
Hypothetically, I have an issue with it. Can you point to a single instance where that occurred? 100%, I would have an issue with that. Can you point to one instance where that occurred?
Why would you? Calm down. Why would you have an issue with it?
If 100,
why would you have an issue with it?
It all depends on the circumstances. If you were dealing,
have an issue with it.
If you were dealing with a random tiny little county that had 7 poll watchers all together in the room, and 3 of them were Democrats, and they were protesting inside the room and screaming shit at Republican lawmakers, and they were all kicked out, and there were 4 poll watchers remaining, I'd be like, okay, I mean, that makes sense. Like, I would also kick them out. But if you have 150 poll watchers in the room, and then 3 of them who are conservatives, who are screaming Trump shit, are kicked out of the room, I'm sorry, I don't care.
So you went down a rabbit hole that I wasn't even going down. If 100% of the Democratic poll watchers would have been thrown, you said you would have an issue with it. My question is why? What would you have with exactly? Nothing illegal happened.
I would have an issue. Were they thrown out for no reason?
Get there. I don't know. They were thrown out. Would you use a flag in your mind? Like,
I would be like, were they?
Reason? Who cares?
Were they lighting fireworks?
Okay.
Why is this a hypothetical that's being considered? Moshe, why is this a hypothetical that's being considered? Did this happen?
No, because I'm trying to make a point.
What the fuck is the point? I'm sorry, what's the point?
I'm going and you're not liking it. Okay. So,
I don't see where you're going.
If poll watchers were thrown out, it's not illegal. And then I asked you a hypothetical, and all of a sudden you cared that they were thrown out. My question is why it's illegal. Who cares if all poll watchers were thrown out?
Because that's not what we're talking about.
Okay, so can you just indulge me?
Okay.
Okay, but I asked a hypothetical and you gave an answer. I'm asking why that's your answer.
So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a hypothetical.
Can you indulge me?
Let me ask you a hypothetical.
No, I'm in the middle of this question.
Hypothetically, if Republicans were in the room raping what? How is that relevant? Pose a relevant question.
I'll try one. Okay, relevant or not? I'm trying to make a point. Maybe my point sucks. So can you indulge me?
So make your point.
Please.
Don't ask me to respond to any hypothetical questions. Make your point.
Well, no. I'm going to ask you to respond to hypothetical because that's how points are many a time. And if you want, you can say any hypothetical you want.
Fine.
Yeah. Unless you're scared to answer it, which it sounds like. You can ask me any hypothetical in the world you want. I'm not scared.
Give me 1 second. This is what I need.
I'm going to ask you hypothetical. You're right.
I need my tequila for this. Give me 1 second. Okay. Talk to me. Give me the hypothetical. Hit me with your best shot.
Say hypothetically, every single Democrat poll watcher is thrown out of poll counting places. Would you have an issue with that?
Yes.
Why? What issue exactly
would you have with that? It would seem unfair to me.
What would be unfair?
Moshe, I'm not that dim-witted, okay? So if I heard a story, if I saw a headline on Fox News that said all Democratic or CNN, all Democratic poll watchers were kicked out of the room, I'd be like, okay, why were they kicked out? And then I'd look for more information. If I was a layman, dim-witted Democrat, who cares if there's more information? Okay, if they did nothing,
here's why
if they did nothing, if there's a policy in place that allows, if there's a law in place, which there is in most states, that allows for poll watchers to be there, and the Democrats or Republicans did nothing wrong, and they were kicked out for no reason, I wouldn't care if they were Democrats or Republicans. I would have a problem with it.
You would have.
I would have a problem with it.
I got cut off. If someone was kicked out, you would have a problem with it.
Of course. For no reason, I would have a problem with it.
Okay. All right. Well, again, so there are people that testified on their oath that they were kicked. So that's something that you look into. I'll pull up the names that are affidavits of people that it happened.
I preemptively asked
For instance,
preemptively
that person who.
Yeah.
Okay. You asked me a question. That person who testified alongside that woman, that guy said he was not allowed in. They told him that the reason was because of COVID restrictions, which he said is obviously not true because his entire place looked like the New York Stock Exchange the entire night, and they were letting media in.
That's what he said. So is it because he said it that therefore it's true?
Oh, so now you go. So now you're saying. So now you're saying we're not trust him. Nobody came out and did it.
I'm saying.
How
is
else
it possible?
You know, if not.
I'm saying, is it possible that a conservative?
How else do we know?
1 second. I'm saying, is it well? There's cameras in the room. So that's one way. And then, is it possible?
So I'm sure you see the cameras.
Well, I'm sure if that was the case,
so
that there would be
a.
Okay. I mean, we could try to look it up right now. But let's 1 second.
We don't have it. It's not released. Michigan, it's not Detroit, Michigan, it's not released, but we can see it. I'm sure. I'm more secure. I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would feel more confident betting their testimony that they're making under oath that they were not allowed back in.
1 second. Did he not also? 1 second. Were Republicans still in the room?
He said that it was very, very. I think it was 1 per 4 or 5 tables.
How would he know?
If I'm recalling correctly, that testimony.
How would he know if the windows were blocked?
Because he would know any people. He was in the room all night. He would know. Again, it could be very simple how he would know.
Imagine you were in that position. Imagine you were in that position. Imagine you were let out for dinner without your badge. You left without your badge, right? And then when you came back and they said, sorry, you don't have a badge, we're not letting you in. And then more people came back and they said, you know what? We're not letting anyone in. We're over the limit. And he's like, what the fuck? We had more people in there before. How do you know? How do you know what happened?
But that's not what happened. But
how do you know what happened?
Okay. I don't know for certainty what happened, but it is normal for me to go on someone seems credible on his testimony of what happened. We should always discard firsthand testimony. Nobody's disputed his testimony. Nobody's disputed his testimony. Are you saying we should always discard testimony or only here?
I'm saying that we should always take firsthand testimony with a grain of salt. Do you think that firsthand testimony is always reliable? We should always believe it 100%?
No. I made it clear this entire discussion time that we should not take it. Okay. It certainly carries weight, especially when nobody disputes it.
So every individual has their own subjective experiences, has their own subjective biases whenever they approach a situation. So whether they were a poll watcher in the room and they left for dinner for an hour and the window was 30 minutes, but we don't know that, right? I'm just making up hypotheticals here. The window was 30 minutes and they came back an hour later and they came back and said, I want back in. They said, I'm sorry, we're not letting anyone back in. You have to be back by 12:30. They're like, what the fuck? I need to get back in. And then boom, he made a complaint. Like that could have happened. Like we don't know all the details. We only know what we saw in the non-sworn testimony on TV.
Okay.
And this is why
let me ask you a question. Do you think firsthand testimony? Do you think firsthand testimony?
Sure. And yeah, sure. I think you could tell a lot about a human being.
It carries some weight. So it carries some weight. If somebody was to testify, I was at this place that day, or I saw this person do something, again, we wouldn't conclude, all right, we know for a fact it happened, but it carries weight.
I mean, there would be a lot more scrutiny if there was a court of law involved.
Well, first-hand testimony wouldn't necessarily even make it to court of law because first of all, this isn't a legal matter, and second, there might be no standing. Third of all, it might not even go anywhere because even if true, it doesn't necessarily mean fraud. You're obfuscating two separate things. Where are we going? I'm asking just a simple
like you're obfuscating.
if somebody gives firsthand testimony to something, I think we're agreeing that that comes some way. And if nobody views it, nobody comes out and says, no, that's not what happened. It's rational. It's perfectly normal to say, okay, I don't know for sure. If this person testifies that this happened, that's evidence. Certainly some evidence that happened. I think that's a rational conclusion. Is that not?
Sure, but what if people have come out and said that that's not what happened?
Okay, then we have the next, and everybody could decide who you think is more credible, and or whatever you want. But you can't take away. You can't just say, "Oh, you're whatever." I deem it not worth anything. I don't think that's really being intellectually honest to just throw out a testimony because you don't like it.
Right. Okay. Okay. 1 second. Let's get rid of this ad real quick.
So this person testified that this counting room could be verified with tape, which there is. We have something which could easily be verified, which he knows it could be verified. His testimony is that this room was as crazy as the New York Stock Exchange, that he leaves, comes back, and after he comes, I'm sorry, but capacity that they did not care about, all of a sudden hearing about. And this, when he's coming back, this is much later in the evening when there's far fewer people. This is his testimony, and they're still letting media in. They're telling him, a Republican poll watcher, which he was supposed to be there, did not allow him back in. Now, assuming that that testimony is accurate, would that be an issue? Would you say, hey, that should certainly not have happened?
I think that it would be an issue, and I think we have to take into deep consideration whether or not what happened from his perspective is what actually was going on behind the scenes, right? Because at the end of the day,
I agree.
we have to look at all the data. So why don't we watch this video together? I've never seen this. I want to see what's going on here, because this is what they're saying.
I don't see anything. Hearing or seeing anything, but I don't.
I'm playing a video of a Trump supporter running through the Trump watching area, the TCF.
I don't see or hear anything, so it's certainly not with me. Yeah, you can link it, so I'll watch later, but or you can describe what's going on, but I don't.
Okay, so there's a gentleman in a mask that is showing up to the poll place that we're talking about, and I'm gonna post this in the private chat. I'm also gonna post this in the links. This guy in a mask shows up. This is the first time I've seen this, by the way. I just happened to Google while we were talking. And this guy shows up in a mask at the TCF vote counting place that is all up in contention, and starts harassing various people and is escorted out by the police. Now, that guy could have easily signed an affidavit, and probably did, or possibly did. I'm not going to say probably, but in all likelihood, he would have been one of those guys who signed up to sign an affidavit. I mean, if anybody right now, what's the website? Donald Trump, DJT45.co. Where is this? DJT45.co. anybody right now would like to report election fraud, I shared a link where Donald Trump has created a reporting form where you can report whatever the hell you want and claim whatever you want, and then they'll ask you to electronically sign an affidavit affirming what you've said, and then they may or may not contact you, depending on how lucid your claim sounds. So you can literally send them, like, I don't know, dog porn in front of a Joe Biden precinct and be like, oh, I saw them voting for Joe Biden. And maybe they'll call you. I have no idea.
I'm not sure what you're
My
trying
point
to
is,
show with that.
my point is that the allegations of fraud have been lackluster at best. There's been allegations that there has been voter fraud without any allegations of voter fraud. Like, people have come up and said, oh, I was kicked out of the room. And yet other Republicans... So that's not... That's right, but other Republicans and other Trump supporters were in the room watching. And so you can't say that there... I mean, not only is that not a claim of voter fraud, that's not even a claim...
Democrat poll watchers that were kicked out? Were there any Democrat poll watchers?
I have no idea. I don't know if any that complained.
I haven't heard of any. Don't you think it's weird that you have complaints from Republicans getting kicked out, but no Democrats getting kicked out? Unless your position is that only Republicans are rowdy? I don't know position.
I mean,
okay, but again, this is not something I really want to hang my hat on, because we haven't even gotten to the meat of it.
Okay.
I do want to get to the meat of it, though. There's especially one testimony I do want to talk about, and that's Colonel Phil Waldron. So he has an extensive resume from Army, what he does afterwards. He actually has he's examined some of the machines and the software in Michigan, and he claims that he does have evidence that there was manipulation.
Like what?
First of all, he shows that they were connected to the internet, which they are not supposed to be.
That's not what he showed.
What his name is, but the former DA. I'm going to get.
He showed.
I've seen his testimony.
No. Like 1 second. I'm going to fact check you on the spot. You on the spot because I'm tired of the fake news media, whatever you want to call them, just letting things slide and waiting till the end to address every little thing. They were not connected to the internet. They could be connected to the internet ex post facto. Next.
No, but he also said that they did run an analysis and there was internet activity. So if I were you, I'd watch it again. Next, he said, and again, so the former DHS that said that we had the most secure election ever. Part of his reasoning was because the voting would not be connected to the internet. We know that to be false.
How do you know what he was saying?
Next, he showed.
1 second. How do you know what the head of the Department of Homeland Security was saying that based off of?
He said he himself said why. He said because of the voter rolls, the accuracy of voter rolls, and the fact, and part of what he said, it was because they could not be connected to the internet. He showed that again. He said that they can be manipulated by both the server level and the software level. He said he had his own white hat white hat hacker that was able to detect a malware that could grab logins and passwords, and through that can manipulate the system. He said through this, operators can assign votes in large numbers, which is actually shown in the manual. Voting records can be altered. And he says also as shown in the manual and won't leave a trace. His testimony was pretty damning. After you watch his testimony, what to what he's saying at all, or hey, this is something that, if what he's saying is true, this is something that should really be looked into, because what he's saying, he's fairly confident. He seemed like a very stand-up, honest, honorable person.
Confident of what?
What was your response?
Confident of
Sorry?
what? What did he allege?
That there was manipulation. Voter watch his test. Did you watch his testimony?
No, I didn't.
You watched
What did he allege? What was the most significant thing he alleged? If you don't remember, I'll remind you.
No, he said that there was voter manipulation.
How was there voter manipulation?
That it was manipulated.
How?
Oh, so there could be a few ways to do it, but if it's connected to the internet, then it can be. He said it can be done via server.
No. I'm not asking about how it could have been manipulated. I'm asking whether or not he asserted factually whether or not it was manipulated.
So he said it was manipulated. He said he ran a forensic analysis.
No, he didn't.
He said he ran a forensic analysis.
1 second, let me break it.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't. All he said was there were specific dumps at specific times that raised concerns about when these dumps were dropped. But what he doesn't even pay tribute to, and I don't know why, I don't know who this guy is. This is the first time I've ever seen his face or heard his name. But Michigan requires that a precinct reports its votes at the same time that they are dropped. So what he alleges is that precincts were dropping votes at various times, but he doesn't even allege that. He just says that it's suspicious that votes were dropped at this time and this time and this time and this time, and then at this time they were dropped like this, and the chart goes up like that, which is what Trump showed in his 46-minute diatribe of how whatever, we can't trust democracy anymore. But what he was showing was precincts like Detroit, which take much longer than areas like that one weird anomalous county in Michigan, that how the county Antrim, Michigan, that how they had all those anomalies. They dropped their votes at 6 p.m. because they only had whatever it was, 15,000 votes. And guess what? Precincts do have 15,000 votes. There are some precincts that only have 1,000 votes in America. But when you go to areas like Detroit, I don't know how to explain this to people, but it takes longer to count 100,000 votes than it does 1,000.
Not hear his testimony then.
So quote him, please. Quote him.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up. I'm not sure why my computer is being slow. But anyways, we want to wrap up here. I have 9 minutes left on. Is there anybody who came and put their name out there, show and debunk inaccurate and impossible?
I'm sorry. Repeat that. You were breaking up. And I don't hear anything now, and you're frozen. Can anyone else hear him?
Not true.
I don't know what you said. Can you repeat that?
Anybody who put their name out there, their name, reputation went out there and said that what this colonel's alleged to be true is inaccurate, it's impossible, and is not true. It cannot happen.
I don't know what the colonel alleged that was consistent with voter fraud.
So you.
I can't hear anything you're saying.
Where votes were flipped big time. I have no idea what's going on with this.
Votes being flipped majorly in elections. I mean, if you want to pick out a specific precinct, we could talk about it. But like, there are explanations for every precinct, and to just assume that one conspiratorial explanation explains every single precinct. Oh, and I'm alone. Well, I don't know if that was fruitful or in any way helpful for people writ large, but it's nice to get on camera again. And yeah, I have to do this more often, I feel like. And yeah, I need to rekindle the communication about these issues, because I feel like even people that are somewhat intertwined or engaging with what's going on in our society, they're really getting their information from one source, and it's important to get your information from as many sources as possible. And that's what I try to do. I wake up in the morning, I listen to NPR, I listen to Bloomberg News, I even listen to Fox. I don't really watch a lot of TV. I don't listen to a lot of I don't know, opinion news pundits. I don't agree. I don't believe in watching people like Rachel Maddow and Tucker Carlson. I think it's a very lackluster way of getting your information. I do think that people like John Oliver and Sam Harris are people who really try to unpack issues from a nonpartisan perspective. And I'm going to let Moshe back in here because he just rejoined. But I really encourage people to really just get their information from as many sources as possible. And Moshe, did you want to add something? You're back in, Moshe. I don't know if he hears me. I don't think he's with me.
Oh, you're here?
You with me? Yeah, now we can hear you.
Hello? You hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. But so my question is, do you know anybody that has gone on record and refuted those claims?
I don't know what claims there would be to refute. I don't know what claims he substantiated that of voter fraud.
We'll get to the voter fraud. Can these machines be connected to the internet? Were they connected to the internet?
I don't think that he claimed that.
Sorry, he did. I'm telling you, he did.
I mean, I'd love for you to show it right now. I remember watching the video, and I don't remember. It's not don't remember. I remember that he didn't say that. Like that they were connected to the internet. But even okay, let's assume that they were connected to the internet. Does that mean that voter fraud occurred? Moshe, you with me?
Yeah.
Let me pose this to you. In the video you posted, in the video you posted on YouTube and Facebook and whatever, you proposed probably
Pulling down my whole computer.
Sarcastically, or what's the word? Where you don't mean it seriously. I don't know. William can probably help me out. Yo,
I'll send you the link.
William,
and you can...
I promise you. Yeah, I'll put you up. I have a second bedroom. You can. I'm gonna message you right now. Well, I'm gonna message you on the chat because I'm on a different program.
All right, so it says testimony in Arizona, I believe. Hold on a second. Here we go. All right, there we go.
Oh, it was a different state testimony.
It was his testimony in Arizona, but he was testifying about what happened in Michigan during his Arizona testimony. I'm sending you the link right now.
1 second.
I highly encourage everybody to watch it. To date, I don't know anybody who disputes his claims, and if his claims are accurate, I think it's pretty damning.
Why is it showing redstream.io? Can someone know this shit? I don't want redstream or whatever. Anyway, Moshe, is your standard of evidence if someone doesn't refute it, then it must be true?
You got...
What?
Hello?
I'm here. I'm a little drunk.
You were asking a question. Is my standard of evidence... No, your question was, is my standard of evidence what? You got cut off.
Is your standard of evidence that if somebody doesn't refute the claim of someone else, then it must be true?
No. But it is perfectly rational to accept that there's a strong being true. Also, do you not?
Maybe, sure. No, that's fine. I can accept that. What was the claim exactly?
Okay. So his claim was a 5-minute testimony. So he makes a lot of claims that, first of all, DEFCON, the DEFCON government, right, they were able to hack machines in under 2 minutes. He says he doesn't know why people are saying it's not possible. He says that it has happened. Is that true? If it is, then that's a very big, obviously it's a very big issue. Second, he said he has a white hat hacker that was able to, I Facebook messaged it to you. It's not allowing you to open it on my computer. Sorry?
Are you dying, or is your computer dying?
Slowing down my entire computer, and I have no idea why. Only malware on the software can grab people's logins and passwords. And that's a claim that he made. His own white hat hacker was able to detect that. If that's true, then obviously that's an issue. He went on for a while going through SGO, the relationship with Dominion. Sorry?
At what time was this? Do you have a timestamp for this part of the video? Because I'll play it for the Shona, for the Kehillah.
I don't have a timestamp, but I could probably find a few fairly quickly.
It's a 45-minute clip.
Watched it a couple of times. Right, I told you it's.
Walter is our first. A Dominion was communicating by internet. Correct. Contrary to what election day for Dominion servers. It tells operators to connect the Ethernet cords to the router, and the systems are connected to the internet. And then, what evidence do you have that there actually was connection? Our teams looked at spider graphs of the Dominion network on election day and showed the increased web traffic, internet traffic on election day. So on election.
Okay, evidence that they were the internet on election day. Evidence that they were connected. Like I told you before, trust me, I've watched this testimony many times. As evidence, it was
information. As new information for me. Does he allege that fraud? One second. Does he allege fraud took place through this internet connection?
He alleges manipulation. Yes.
Okay. Where does that happen?
He does. He says so he gives a bunch of different things from local races that counts from beginning, from first count to recount were completely can only happen through manipulation. He gives a number of evidence. I'm telling you, watch the testimony. It's a pretty damning testimony. I've searched high and low. I cannot find a person who's willing to refute his testimony and show any of either wrong or impossible. I haven't seen it. If you have, I genuinely do want to watch it, but I haven't. But let me find the part.
So I'm going to share this message.
Not a secret. I mean, DEF CON last year.
Here, DEF CON last year. Hold on a second.
I think the hacking teams broke in and manipulated these machines in under 2 minutes. So it can be done. It's easy.
Again, he says DEF CON last year was able to the machines and manipulate in under 2 minutes. Is that true? Can they? If yes, that's a game changer. I don't know anybody refuted that. He makes a lot of factual. He's a lot.
Well, I mean, do we know if they're factual? How do we know if they're factual? Right? Because
I'm taking his word on it. I'm not.
Moshe, if you're a Trump supporter, I'm not talking about you. I'm saying that from a Trump perspective, it's not hard to find people who will regurgitate the message that you want to regurgitate for the right price, right? So whether they have Colonel in front of their name or not, they should be fact checked. So let's fact check, right?
I agree.
Let's fact check.
100%. He should be fact checked.
Okay, so let's fact check. 1 second.
Here, one of our white hat hackers
discovered a malware. It's called a Q-snatch that basically records login credentials and passwords. So if someone in Philadelphia, someone in Maricopa County, or someone in Michigan logged in, that malware will grab their, and so you can log in. If you got the backside of that malware, you can log in to Maricopa County to manipulate.
A hacker that does it. He says he has evidence of all this.
But
again,
he's not. He's saying that he. 1 second. The only thing he's saying is that someone could do this.
Correct. Yeah, they detected a correct. 100%. So coding system
they're saying that someone could technically do this.
Correct.
Not that someone did do this.
He's saying that it is open to fraud. Okay, no, that was there's two different parts. It was, again, it's almost long.
Okay.
One, he was showing that there was manipulation. He was showing that he did also discover malware up to fraud.
Okay, so let's take a look. Let's take a look at this clip. 1 second. Can you see this? I don't know what this is. I'm just Googling this guy. I don't know who this guy is, but.
And also, the New York Times itself, Rat 2018, from MIT professor as well, that claimed that he could hack these machines too. So there are a lot of people who are putting their names, their reputations at stake, their name behind it, saying, "I am." These
but no one is claiming that these weren't hacked.
Oh, what are you? What? Of course they are. What do you mean? The former DHS that came out and said that this is the most secure election. Every single Democrat saying that it cannot be hacked. Your position is that.
No. I'm saying that no one is saying that it was hacked.
No, that's what I was saying. Again, there are different parts of the testimony. He's saying that there was manipulation in a different part of the testimony.
Where's that?
But then there's another part. The Dominion voting system is the. I'll show it. I'll pull it up next. Just watch the whole clip. I'm not making. I've shown you everything. I'm not making this stuff up.
Yeah, but don't make claims.
Dominion voting.
But Moshe, please, if we're gonna have, I'd love to have further conversations with you. But let's not make claims that we're not readily able to back up. Like, okay, it's possible that you're right, that the colonel said that they were logged into the internet and things were manipulated. But if you're not able to back up that claim, then you shouldn't be. In other words, if that claim is false, then what you're claiming is false information, and we shouldn't be sharing that. From my perspective or your perspective, neither of us should be sharing false information to our viewers.
So I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I misunderstood you. So you're saying now we could never, ever, ever take anybody's testimony ever because if they were lying, then you're lying sharing their testimony.
No, I'm saying that if someone has testified,
yeah, that is what you said. That I'm basically lying.
No, I'm saying that if someone has claimed something, you better damn well be prepared to present it when we're having a live Facebook conversation.
I did.
Okay, where is it?
And every single from him so far, I showed you that he says in the clip, even though you say it. And then you said, oh,
one second.
Clip. So don't try.
One second. You still have not presented to me any claim of fraud.
Yeah. What about any claim?
And that's what we're talking about. You still have not presented a single claim of fraud.
I'm not saying, obviously, I would not be having a conversation with you saying I can prove. That's not what I'm saying, and that's not what I even came here to do. And not only that, I don't know if you recall the first question you even asked me in a second. I don't know if you're questioning in this conversation, which I answered, I don't know. You're the one that's making it sound like he knows. I don't know. What my position is, there are testimonies which in the world I live in, unless it is challenged, there are testimonies that sound legitimate to me. I don't know if it's true to say this issue. Somebody please refute it. If nobody does, then it is perfectly rational for me to say, hey, maybe this is true. So don't twist my position to something that it's not. The position that fraud did not happen.
Do you think
you're the one that's
happened?
coming up with such a position, not me. I don't know. There are testimonies that are damning. And yes.
Okay. Well, who has testified to fraud happening?
Well, this person testified that with his and the fact that he was able to detect malware, the fact that he said he was actually. If you want to pull up that part of the testimony.
That's not what you played. That's not what you played, right? That what you played is that potentially,
clip, but if
the hardware was susceptible to malware.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll find that as well. But again,
do you understand the difference?
The position, and then I'll find it for you because it seems like a YouTube clip yourself. So I'll find it for you.
The Kentucky governor's race, we saw significant Minion and Smartmatic, companies like that, 6 votes, isn't that right? Yes, sir. And Hugo Chavez, this is one of the software. Correct. Now tell us a little about Maricopa County. You had the opportunity to examine any of the Dominion machines that we used in this election? Yes, sir. at machines and software up in Michigan. So you know that Dominion machine to count the vote. Correct. Also used in Michigan. And the machines that you observed to look at, were able to examine, were used in the Michigan vote? Correct. Now tell us a little about Dominion. Dominion is a election, Sequoia and Premier, 2007. What is it? Smartmatic, their roots are in, yes sir, are available to you. We have several witnesses that go and said that the pattern, Dominion and Smartmatic, companies like that. Well, let me ask you this other question. One of the former officials of the United States government, a gentleman named Chris Krebs, to look at any evidence are relying on. Well, what did he say?
I have to find out. It doesn't make sense for me to go through a 48-minute clip here. The link's there. I sent you the link. You can watch it for yourself. But again, you're completely not understanding my position. My position is that there are testimonies that lead to suspect, very suspect, that there's fraudulent behavior going on.
Okay.
Or go on.
Okay.
And
so what I'm understanding is that you're saying, and that what the people are saying who are proposing this, is that fraud could have happened. We don't have any evidence that it did happen, but it could have happened, and therefore we cannot declare Joe Biden the winner.
okay, that is a horrible summary. My position is that there's evidence both at the very least that it happened, and that the safeguards that we have in place either clearly don't work or have been ran around. Let's say it not being connected to the internet, or USB or flash drives getting stolen, and somebody testifying that he saw someone walking with a bag of flash drives. Or how about the fact that somebody said that ballots were counted, or ballots were being filled out, or tested. I mean, there are so many tests. Again, you clearly not looked into this. I did. It's not people don't like spending the time.
Thrown out. They've all been thrown out.
No, they're thrown out because of what?
I'm not a judge, right? I'm not a judge. The judge has thrown them out.
Also, why were they thrown out? Why were they thrown out? Well, because why? Because they were. Because
I'm not a judge. Because I would assume that because either they're circumstantial at best, but mind you, I don't know. One second, I don't know if the claims that you're suggesting occurred were actually real, or whether or not they were presented to court. Because you could claim, technically, that aliens invaded our planet and voted in Arizona, Maricopa County, and it was presented to court, and I wouldn't know because I never heard that claim before. You literally just made it up. And I'm not saying that you're making this stuff up. I don't think you're making anything up. I'm saying that, like, I don't know what was presented to court and what was not. I know that the court has rejected 98% of the lawsuits that Trump has proposed. And now we're at a place where, like, okay, dude, just admit that you lost. Relax. It's over.
I'm sorry, but there's such an amateurish and childish position to take, and it lacks all nuance. And nuance is very, 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 very. It's a good thing to have, and I'll explain. A judge throwing out a case does not mean that the testimony that was given was false. That one has nothing to do with the next. Okay.
Right.
The question is whether what the testimony would be to, even if correct. There's a lot of other things that consideration.
I have one question for you.
Throughout a case.
I have one question for you. Can you name a single case presented by the Trump campaign or the Trump administration or the Trump legal team that should not have been thrown out?
I don't know all the cases, but and again, you're missing a point. I've said it like 6 times. I'm not sure why you're not getting it. A case being thrown out does not mean that the testimony is wrong.
Right.
That's not what it means.
I'm not suggesting that the testimony is wrong per se.
But,
I'm suggesting that your claim has no merit.
Now let's go to
You're claiming that there may be. Do you think that there was voter fraud?
I'm inclined to believe there was in certain cases. Yeah, like in Georgia,
okay.
in the State Farm Arena.
Okay, probably not to the extent that you are, but I'm also inclined to accept that in this election there was very likely voter fraud. Now, do you think there was voter fraud to the extent that could overturn this election?
Is it possible? It's certainly possible. Are you saying it's not?
How? Where?
Oh, well, if the voting machines were connected to the internet, then it could be. If chain of custody is broken on the flash drives, it could be defrauded easily.
Is there any evidence that it was?
Well, the only way is a forensic analysis. Well, you just changed your question. You just changed your question.
What was
now you're going to whether there's how it could it have, and I said it could have, and I explained to you how it could have, and you said, "Oh, where's the evidence it was?" Okay. I'm
trying to unpack where your mind is at. Okay, so we have the ability for an election to be fraudulently geared towards a certain candidate. Fine, sure. Now, do we have any evidence to suggest?
So now let's say we're where we all agree that there is a way that the election could be defrauded. The way that we can see whether it was, and that is through an investigation and forensic analysis. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so Democrats don't want that. That's what the Trump party wants. They want forensic analysis and an investigation to show what fraud happened. And if you just agreed that if we're in a position that we agree,
how would you enforce that?
Happened, then we should investigate. Now we're fiscally.
It's not about fiscally conservative.
How are we going to
whether or not it's about whether or not there are the legislative procedures in place to forensically analyze an election in all of the 50 states. Do you think that those processes exist within the federal government? They don't. And mind you, I'll give you a little tip. Democrats have been trying to introduce that bill up until 2020 when they've been rejected by Mitch McConnell.
Okay, for Mitch McConnell, again, that's I honestly don't give a damn about that. Today,
how do you think that will happen?
But I want to back up. You agreed that if our voting process, if a weak link is detected, where it is possible the machines or deflection, then you agreed, or let me know if you're going to walk it back, but you agreed before that if it's detected that it's for it to be defrauded, then we should go ahead and conduct an investigation to ensure that it wasn't indeed defrauded. Are you sticking with that, or do you want to change it? You're not sticking with it. You want to change it.
That's not what I said.
Okay, so what's your new answer?
That's not what I said.
It's not what you said. Okay, anybody who's watching, okay, we can go through the tape afterwards. Okay, so what did you say?
When somebody is elected via democratic process, you
just said that I was inaccurate, and that's not what you said. So what did you? I asked you that question. What was your answer to the question?
I'm already after like 4 glasses of wine and 3 glasses of tequila. I don't remember what I said. But
so then we can't have this conversation now because you're all over the place. You're answering one thing and then another thing. Let me ask you again, just so that we can have the conversation.
So if you'll allow me to answer the question, okay? What I believe should happen in this instance is that if we can come together as 50 states to decide on how an election should occur, how the process of an election should take place within our entire jurisdiction of our country, then fine, we can legislate what each state does. But until that point, we have a United States of America, which means that each state has their independent process for conducting elections. And as much as I don't agree with that, straight up, I think that we should all have a very specific standard for how we conduct elections, how we conduct gun background checks, how we conduct driver's license background checks, all these different things. I think that we should have a national database for that. Elections included. Republicans don't agree with that. Now, should we have a system where it's all inclusive, where this is how it's done? Absolutely, I agree. We should have a national standard, and if there's any inconsistencies, they should be registered with the National Election Authority, whatever it is, that we should look into every grievance and easily be able to dismiss anything that is possibly fraudulent within minutes. But we don't have that. We don't have that. We have to rely on the secretaries of state of each individual state, and we have to figure out from each individual secretary of state whether or not every single election was conducted in a fair and procedural way to produce a fair democratic process. And we have to rely on the systems. And if we're suggesting that the systems are lying to us, then provide evidence. And if we don't have evidence, then either run for Congress to change the systems or provide evidence for the systems defrauding us. But until that point, we don't have anything but the systems to rely on.
Let me ask you a question. Say it comes out right now that it's proven and it's shown that every poll worker can just put in any ballot for any party that they want. Like any get scanned, they for Biden, this one's for Trump, and any of them are able to, or let's say, how about this? Let's say it's from my laptop can just alter the election whatever I want with anybody's vote. Should that be looked to whether I did that?
Absolutely, 100%. Don't get me wrong. When you suggested in your video, you had a suggestion.
Why? Do you have evidence?
1 second. When you suggested, you had a video on YouTube where you suggested that we text to vote or go out on our doorsteps and scream out our vote and whatever it was. I'm all for coming up with a better voting system. 100%. I think
that wasn't my question.
But I understand. I'm just saying that I'm all for voter.
I get that. I know
the election process to be completely reformed.
I get that.
We're in 2020. There's no reason why we're doing this shit still.
I agree, but just to get back to my question, so it turns out that that I'm able to alter the election from my laptop. To be investigated whether I actually did that, and you said absolutely. My question is why? What evidence do you have that I did?
I don't think that it should.
You don't have any evidence that I did.
I don't think that it
absolutely.
Should. I'm saying if
it comes out, so let's get on the same page. So it comes out right now. If the world finds out Moshe Weissman can alter the results from his laptop, the only way to know he did do it is analysis of Moshe Weissman's laptop.
Moshe Weissman
should analysis be done on Moshe Weissman's laptop?
Moshe Weissman, I don't know if you understand this about computer engineering, but whatever can be done from your laptop can be done from anyone's laptop. So unless you are able to provide computer forensic evidence,
that wasn't my.
But you're providing hypotheticals that are irrelevant.
Let me make it easier for you, because it seems like you're having a difficult time. Let's say it's shown that anybody from any laptop, let's say it's shown that anybody from any laptop could hack into the election and alter the results. Okay? And the only way to did happen is to run a forensic analysis on the main Dominion voting software. Should such a forensic analysis be done?
Okay, you threw a lot of nuanced little statements in there that really kind of skewed.
No. That was very simple.
You realize Dominion is not used across the board, right?
Dominion is. Let me ask you one more time.
No, Moshe, because I understand your question.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be at the board for the places that use Dominion. Yeah,
but there has been no evidence to suggest that there has been any fraud relative to Dominion systems.
So you're saying if it turns out tomorrow, the voting system in America, our voting process can be hacked by anybody's laptop. Your position is you're fine with that so long as we should investigate.
If there's,
please do this again, because I know you're going to walk it back afterwards, because you're not going to like my next question. You're going to change. So let's keep it. If it turns out that our voting system can be altered by home on their laptop, then it should be investigated. Why? Happened?
1 second. Repeat the question, because you broke up in the last sentence or two.
Turns out tomorrow, report, breaking news, American voting process can be hacked from any person's computer laptop. Let's investigate whether that happens.
Okay. The last thing I heard was that the election can be hacked from any person, from any home, and something about whether or not that should be happening. So I assume that your question is, should we investigate whether or not that has happened? And my response to you is this. If we have a system that can be hacked from any computer in any home throughout the United States of America, absolutely. Not only should we investigate it, we should completely fucking change our entire system of elections. 100%. But that's not the case, right?
Why?
Because in 99% of the United States of America, that's not possible. You can't hack the United States elections from a computer at home. So, in the various places where Dominion software, not even Dominion, it's not even Dominion. It's a question of whether or not the election system is connected to the internet. Because the question is not about Dominion software. The question is about internet access. And if something is not connected to the internet, it cannot be hacked unless something is internally installed into the system. So unless a system is connected to the internet, we don't have to be concerned about that. We can develop systems that protect against external access to the system. So once we get to a point where our election systems are secure enough to protect against that, and mind you, if you go to New Hampshire, which is the first state to vote in the electoral process, the first state to vote in the primaries, they do not vote via computer electronics. It's very old school. There's a lot of primaries, a lot of precincts that vote very old school, paper ballots, drop in a box. We're living in the United States of America in 2020 where people do things the way that they want. And if we can come up with a system that ensures that there's no access to the internet, no access to anything outside of that, then I don't care what Joe Schmo says in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or Mequon, Wisconsin, or whatever it is, if you want to claim that someone hacked into your computer, I don't care what you say, because we know from the IT techs that we've paid millions of dollars to develop our IT systems throughout the United States of America to protect against the infrastructure of our elections, then we don't have to worry about this. Now, I don't think that we're there yet.
Okay.
I do think that we need to start investing a lot more money into that. And I hope that you and I can team up and encourage our Congress people and our senators to put more money into election security, because Republicans have been shooting this down for a long time. And we need to stop. We need to start putting more money into election security.
I hope you'll go back over this when you sober up. The last 25 minutes that we just had, I'm serious. I know you're intelligent. I know you're gonna go back over tomorrow and you'll be like, oh my God, what happened here?
Well,
we just went.
I will never watch.
Okay, okay. I wouldn't if I were you either. We went through that there was testimony that it was connected to the internet. Your response to that was, okay, but who said that anything fraudulent happened? And then we went into the segue, and that's why I brought this question up of whether it's possible. And now you're saying, you're agreeing that if it's, then that's not good. So confused. Is the fact that it's possible a bad thing?
Yes. If it's possible, it's a bad thing.
That it's possible for somebody a bad thing.
You're breaking up. But I don't know if people can see me or him.
A Samsung phone and change the election. Let's see if that happened.
But if all you drew from that was from what I said versus what he said.
I just found out there's a hack. Let's see if anybody.
Okay. Well, my concern is not whether or not it could happen, but about whether or not it did happen. So I'm not an IT expert. I mean, I'm working on it, but like, I'm not there yet, and so I'm not entirely familiar.
But that's not your. So you'd have no problem, and no matter how vulnerable, or it turns out, up until the point where somebody brings evidence.
No, obviously I would, and I do, and I already attested to that. Like I would much rather.
Why would you have an issue with it?
I would much rather have a system where everybody is provided an individual fingerprint device that can tabulate their vote on a bi-weekly process of every single legislative piece of whatever. I'm sure we can come up with a million different ways to make voting easier and better and more secure and whatever. The question is whether or not it is or isn't secure. And I think even with one second. Even with all the opportunity to interfere and hack into the elections, there has been no indication that has ever happened. So
how do you find out happened?
What?
How do you find out whether it happened or not? How would you know?
Has there been any indication in the past whether or not it's happened?
No. The different question. How would you know that happened?
I'm relying on historical data.
There's this, I don't know, historical data over here really mean. Why are you relying on someone? If it's possible for something to be. Why would you have such confidence that it wasn't hacked?
I don't know how I don't know how the election system works. I don't know how the electronic system of the voting election system.
We have testimony that, as far as I know, is not disputed. Oh, that the system Dominion software was connected.
That's not what it said. It said in Arizona. There was not even Dominion. Dominion's not even there in Arizona.
Was in Michigan. He testified in Arizona. I played it in Arizona. He testified that in Michigan.
Boobala.
To the internet, is that correct? That was.
Oh wait.
He said, which was largely Dominion and several others, is not connected to the internet. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Now, is Dominion his counsel? Dominion was in fact connected to the internet. Are you referring to information within the user's manual? Well, let's go back to the user's. What about the user's manual? The internet. You're right. And then, what evidence do you have that actually was connection to the?
Okay, so we have evidence that, and everybody everybody I've seen agrees that if it is connected to the internet, then it's easy to get. Now, I've seen a lot of people say even if it's not connected, it's easy to hack, which was what he said was if they were able to do. There's an MIT professor when he said he was able to do it, but from what I researched that.
Have you ever hacked a computer system?
Sorry?
Have you ever hacked a computer system?
I have issues plugging the computer into the light. I know I'm the technologically illiterate.
Okay, so I've hacked computer systems, right? And I know that it takes a little bit more than being tuned into a server in Russia to be able to know which precinct has randomly plugged in a server in a random precinct in the United States of America, unless there's some sort of communication. But I have to rely. I will. I have to rely on the NSA. I have to rely on the CIA. I have to listen. There could be really nefarious shit going on in the background, but unless every single judge is in on it, and every single lawyer that has been involved in this thing,
wrong because that's not necessary for the claim. Because judges and good people that are just going based on the mission that they have.
What's the claim?
Well, is that Dominion was connected to the internet.
Okay. And if Dominion was connected to the internet, what then?
Then it's very easy for somebody to hack into it.
Is the claim that someone hacked into it?
He does make he makes the claim that there was, but I don't know if he makes the claim that it was necessarily hacked via the internet in those machines at that time. But everybody agrees that it's connected to the internet. It is very easy to hack. Do you feel comfortable having that we just had an election that was easy to be hacked?
I don't.
Can I ask you a question? Let me ask you a question. What if it's found out that it is able to hack the election? A new thing, the president is able to hack in. Would you feel comfortable if Trump won? Without any evidence that he hacked in? What? Would you have evidence he hacked in? So why don't we feel comfortable with it?
I think we can both come to terms. I think we can both come to terms on whether or not we'd be comfortable with a dictatorship. But I am not comfortable.
The question, the scenario is Trump could have hacked in. There is no evidence that he did hack in. Trust the results.
The evidence is that there were very few. Well, I mean, I don't know of any servers except for. I mean, okay. I've never listened to the testimony that you're offering right now. So I've never back checked or never researched it and never fact checked it. I don't know what he's saying. So I'm really I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna hear what he's saying. Aside from that, I don't know of any allegations that any server was connected to the internet and had any sort of breach of security. And I know how many millions and millions of dollars each state and city government spends on protecting their servers and protecting access to anything of their. You have to understand that every state has access to all of their citizens' social security numbers and all of their information, and they have very good IT teams in place. And to suggest to me that there was an infiltration that there's no evidence of, but there could have been, and therefore we should completely upend the election for the possibility that there was, because there was a connection to the internet, without any sort of allegation that there was any access to this information, but only that it could have been accessed hypothetically, it is a little bit outlandish to me.
Okay.
And now I feel like
not
I'm
a problem. I'm not here. I'm convinced you. Obviously, that was the goal. I truly hope anybody that has watched it or anybody that will watch it will go through this. Again, was there voter fraud? I'm inclined to believe that there's certain. I'm inclined to believe that there was in certain instances. How widespread is it? I don't know.
Let's put down a friendly. Let's put down a friendly $20 bet. If you were to go above or below, okay. Let's put down a friendly, non-monetary bet. If you were to go above or below the margin, if you were to say above how many votes and below how many votes, how many would you say were fraudulent?
I have no idea. And
okay, I would say in this election, below 500 votes in total were fraudulent. Would you contest that?
Based off of? No, I can't.
Right.
I told you I don't know.
Based off of my random data from random sources. From
actually, I'm pretty after what I on the video in the arena. I'm fairly confident that there was fraudulent behavior there. It just doesn't add up. Pulling things out of under a table again, which breaks custody. Wasn't supposed to home. I'm not a betting man, but if I had to bet, and the data that Biden got a huge dump, a huge amount of a huge dump at that time as well. So again, if I would probably bet money that there was a big chunk of failure there, but that's not my point, and I don't really care about the actual number. My point is, in the case that I was making in this video, is there are allegations which seem to be credible, many undisputed, that there was fraud, easy possibility of fraud. And due to that, the only way to rule it out, and what should be done whenever you have such actions, whenever you have such testimonies, is there are ways of verifying. There are ways of doing it. You can signature verification or forensic analysis. I can't think of any reason to not do that. I know all of a sudden some people are becoming fiscal conservatives or coming up with cockamamie reason why not do it, but there are ways to verify whether any fraudulent behavior happened or not. There is a way to do it, and there's not a legitimate, coherent, rational reason not to. If there is a way to legitimately see whether there was fraud or not, and we have allegations of fraud, there's no reason why we should not look into whether there was fraud. I cannot think of any rational reason for that position. If you want to take it, that's fine.
Let me ask you a question. What fraudulent outcome could you possibly imagine that couldn't be overcome by hacking? You're proposing.
I don't understand the question. What?
You're proposing voter ID, voter signature identification, whatever you're proposing. What do you think we couldn't? What do you think legislation we could introduce that could introduce any sort of protection against hacking?
Now, first of all, there are. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about future legislation. I'm talking about this current election.
So what?
There are allegations of fraud.
You mentioned things about people about voter fraud, but like what? What do you?
So what do you have against doing an audit? What do you have against doing? What do you have against doing a forensic analysis? Why not?
I don't care. Whoever wants to do a forensic analysis can do a forensic analysis. I don't care.
That is the entire position of the Republicans. Let's do a forensic analysis. That is our entire position. That is my position.
Why? But why?
So we're in a boat.
Okay.
You and
until
I are
what
in the same
end?
boat.
Until what end?
Very simple. No, there's even this exactly what needs to be done in order to prove whether what he's saying is correct or incorrect. I explained exactly what needs to be done. You can prove him correct or prove him incorrect. The Republicans are saying, let's do that. The Democrats are saying, no, why not? Why not do it? What's the downside?
Who's paying for it?
Oh, if that's the question, I promise you I'll find people to pay for it. Come on. That's not
sure
the
if they found people to pay for it, they would pay for it.
No, the problem is it's not a monetary issue. It's a question of the states advising an audit.
I mean, Indiana tried to introduce state ID laws, and it cost them like $10 million. So, I mean, a lot of states can't afford that.
I'm not saying there is no financial. I'm not saying there is no monetary cost. Obviously, there is. I'm saying that's not what the holdup is. The holdup isn't the Democrats aren't saying with you, but who's going to pay for it? That's not the position. No. That's not the conversation.
What do Democrats have to do with this?
They're what do you mean? They're not to have an audit.
Audit of what?
On the software and on the ballots.
The software is
and it's able to confirm. Sorry?
The software is dependent on the state.
I said the state is able to allow for these. We can have an independent body that will come in, conduct forensic analysis on the machines, software, and the ballots.
Why are you trying to
again? And you can, because they're the ones that are saying we shouldn't do it. Republicans are saying we should do it.
But it's not about Democrats versus Republicans. It's a state issue.
Okay, and in these states, it's the question is the debate.
Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, and where else? Those are all Republican-run legislatures.
Michigan?
Yeah.
Well, no, not Detroit. No. And also, for me, it's even if in these states, even if it's Republican state, it's the Democrats are saying that it should be done, and saying that's the district had in our country right now. And if you find a Republican that falls on one side, or the Democrat that falls on the other, that's neither here nor there for the actual discussion.
My dear, Michigan has a legislature of 1 second. My entire screen, sure. Here, this is Michigan's legislature. Okay, Michigan's legislature has 38 seats that are, and majority are Republican. Okay, Republicans are fighting this. This is not a bipartisan issue. This is not a partisan issue. This is a Trump issue.
I agree. There are Republicans that Trump's calling out as well, but this is so the position of the Trump campaign. The position of the campaign. You agreed with the position. You just agreed with it.
Of what?
That we should do a forensic analysis and audit.
If there's any allegations of fraud, there's no allegations of fraud.
If we can show that it's possible for fraud.
What? Moshe, are you really claiming that if there's any allegations of a crime to have been committed, then we must investigate the crime? Really? Come on.
Let's back up. If the president to hack into election, but you have no evidence that he has, should he investigate?
No.
No, we should not investigate. If Trump is able to control the elections from his from the office, don't have any evidence that he has, it comes to light that it's possible. It should not be investigated.
Mashallah. There have been many opportunities for many people over the many centuries that we have been in existence.
Okay. Now let's just we just like
okay.
If it's possible that you could do it, would you?
Okay. We have never conducted a democratic election where it was not possible for the other side to cheat. That doesn't mean we've conducted thorough investigations to make sure that the other side didn't cheat. It's always been possible for the other side to cheat. Doesn't mean it happened.
Correct.
So why are we trying to investigate it if there's no evidence that it happened?
Okay, so the question: if Donald Trump is up in his office, why would you investigate it? What evidence that it happened?
What? You broke up like 20 times.
Let's go back. President, it comes to light. News. President Trump is the president. It was able to control. Let's say he won the election, laptop in his office, and he just won the election. What would be your reaction?
If I found out that the president was able to control,
what would be your reaction
of the election from a laptop in his office? I would demand a recount, hand recount.
Why? What evidence do you have that he did?
Just the possibility that Donald Trump or Joe Biden or any other individual had the ability to control the election from a laptop in their office. 1 second. Oh! Are you suggesting that Joe Biden had the ability to control the results of the election from a laptop in his office? Is that what you're claiming?
Oh my God.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I'm just making sure you're not that nuts. I'm just making sure.
That hurt my head.
Because it sounded like it was that nuts, right? It did sound like that for a second.
What I'm showing is that when we find that it's possible to cheat an election, even before having evidence that it was actually cheated, but once it comes to light that it is possible that somebody can hack in and cheat it, then I know, hey, if that's possible, then let's find out if it did happen. That's a perfectly rational response. You can't say, hey, not look until we have evidence. No, come on, that's stupid. Fine, come on. Enough is enough. It's a stupid position you have. I'm sorry. I know you're intelligent. Blame it on the alcohol, but that's just a stupid position to take. Evidence, if it comes to light that it's possible for somebody to hack into.
Yes.
So you don't care if you don't care if because we don't have actual evidence. Come on.
Of course I care.
But until you have actual evidence it was hacked, you shouldn't.
Do you have any evidence that it was hacked?
Let me ask you a question. The whole beginning.
Let me ask you a question.
Fighting with me.
Do you not care if aliens invaded our planet and involved themselves in our politics and represented themselves as human Homo sapiens and got themselves elected and completely upended our democracy by representing themselves as humans when meanwhile they're trying to represent their own planet? Do you not care? Okay, well I don't care if I don't care with your delusional suggestions that random non-people, whoever hacked into our election. If it didn't happen, I don't care.
So why at the beginning of this were you fighting with me whether it's possible to hack, whether the internet was actually connected or not?
That wasn't.
If you don't care. Yes, it was.
It really wasn't, but why was
you did not argue with me whether it was internet?
No, it wasn't at the beginning.
You didn't argue during this discussion whether beginning of our discussion, towards the beginning of our discussion, when I mentioned that the servers were connected, the Dominion servers were connected to the internet, you said no, they're not. Why? Here.
My timeline of events is a little bit skewed, but for me that was like a half hour ago. It could have been like an hour. I don't know. But why?
Time it was.
I don't care what time it was either. But why does it matter if our election was not skewed with?
Again, I don't know what you're saying. Earlier on, prior to this instant, we had a discussion. I said the Dominion servers were connected to the internet, and you're like, no, they weren't. And you even tried to correct me on his test. He said it's possible to connect, not that they were actually connected. And I pulled it up, and that he said that they were actually connected. Why did you argue with me on that? Who cares if it was actually connected?
Oh, this
why
is an
would
easy
you
answer.
argue that?
This is an easy answer. You ready? You ready for this? Do you have pen and paper ready?
Yep.
Okay. So I didn't hear the part where he said that they were connected to the internet. Okay. Write that down. That was it. That was the end of the answer.
But why would you even make that point? What you were arguing with me when the servers were connected to the internet, you corrected me like,
1 second.
No, they were not.
I thought this whole debate was about whether or not election fraud actually took place. Did fraud take place?
Okay, let's go back to the first question in the debate. Little short summary I gave probably about 15 minutes ago, 15, 20 minutes ago. I don't recall exactly. Question of, do I have proof of fraud? Now, could be there is. We'll get into that. There's another issue of, are there legitimate concerns?
Right.
Which lead to the conclusion that there can be the fraud. It can only be proven either way, one way through an investigation.
Right.
Now, I brought up that are... Sorry?
Which I've never discounted. I never said that there was no way for our election to be defrauded.
And if it comes to light that there's a way, an easy way to defraud the election, should that be prior to having actual evidence that that did happen?
Okay. If there's a way that I could have killed somebody, should that be investigated, even if I didn't kill that person?
You did not seriously say that in response to my question.
Do you not understand that you're saying if hypothetically something could have occurred Therefore, we should investigate whether or not it actually did occur.
So you're saying that it did not happen until you have evidence that it did.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. If it turns out Donald Trump just won the election, and it turns out that he has a laptop in his own can the election, but you do not have, he did, and he did not.
If he has a
laptop
in his office, then he could change the election.
That enabled him, but you have no evidence that he did. In your mind, he did not.
Moshe, is that a serious question? Come on.
As serious as your question about murder. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself an intellectual at all? Like, how was that a question?
Oh my God. Okay, fine. Let's Chaim.
Moshe, if Dr. Evil had a laptop in his office where he could control the results of an, come on, seriously?
You just said before that until you have that something happened, you conclude that it did not happen. So now you're changing.
You're proposing random, completely irrelevant events that did not occur, as if I should actually.
Makes no difference whether they occurred or not. I'm follow through the conclusion. Please watch this again tomorrow. I'm sorry. It's just, we're going around the circles. I just don't see this being constructed. Not going to get anywhere. It just, we're not. Again, no. We're not on the same page. It could be I'm wrong. Could be I'm in the world. That doesn't bother me if you think that. I don't see this. I don't see this really. I don't see this. We're obviously not talking the same language. We have some disagreements, I think, on logic itself, and I just don't see us getting page on anything here. And we've been going for a few hours. I just getting on. We've gone around in a number of circles. I do hope anybody watching did get anything out of it. I hope people do go back and see the conversation as it played out from beginning. I've been pretty consistent in my position. It's a position I've always had. Clearly, you disagree and think I'm wrong, which is fine. But that's life. Life's on.
I don't even know what position you have, but I'm okay.
Go over the video tomorrow. I think that would be better. And if you have any questions, we'll take it from there.
Can you clarify in one sentence what your position here is?
Oh yes, there are what seem to be irregularities and testimony to wrongdoing and possibilities of fraud, and all investigated to the fullest of our capabilities to ensure that there was no wrongdoing.
Okay, and my response to that is that despite all of the suggested irregularities within this election, unless there is significant evidence to suggest there is substantial fraud within the election and evidence to validate such a claim, there's no reason to produce an investigation from a state level or a county level or a city level to substantiate any such claim without evidence.
Anyway, that's where we disagree. Anyways, this has been fun. Chaim, thank you so much. And
it's good to see you again. Absolutely. Always. Anytime.
All right. Good night.